Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Suzanne Chang. So I am the Director of Supportive Care Services for the Division of Neuro-Oncology here at UCSF. I'm also the co-director for the Gordon-Murray Caregiver Program in Neuro-Oncology. It's really my pleasure to welcome you here today. And this is on behalf of not only our Caregiver program, but in partnership with By the Bay Health and our UCSF colleagues at the Helen Diller Family Comprehensive Cancer Center, the MERI Center for Education in Palliative Care, and the Benioff Children's Hospitals. So we're so grateful you've taken the time to join us in this special event dedicated to probably one of the most vital and often unrecognized aspects of the healthcare journey, caregiving. We know that caregivers often work quietly and tirelessly behind the scenes. They provide comfort, advocacy, strength, and love through some of life's most difficult moments. But they not only hold families together through uncertainty, they serve as an essential part of the care team with the providers. And their work is deeply personal, often invisible, and profoundly impactful. At UCSF, we believe caregiving is not just part of the care journey, it is the care journey. And that is why we are united with By the Bay Health in advocating for better recognition, stronger support, and deeper understanding of the caregiver needs. So tonight, we're honored to share excerpts from Caregiving, a new PBS documentary produced and directed by actor and caregiver himself, Bradley Cooper. This film shines a much-needed light on the realities of caregiving, its challenges, its sacrifices, and the extraordinary resilience. And it helps elevate a conversation that is long overdue. So following the screening, we are fortunate to have an insightful panel discussion moderated by the Bay Health Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Claritza Rios. And our caregiver panelists will share their lived experiences, offer perspectives on the supports they need the most, and help us think together about how we as a community can do better. So again, I want to thank you for all the programs and the teams that help bring this together. Our partners by the Bay Health, our caregiver team at the UCSF Neuro-Oncology Gordon-Murray Caregiver Program, and the Brain Tumor Center, and our dedicated colleagues at the UCSF Helen Diller Family Comprehensive Cancer Center, the UCSF MERI Center for Education of Palliative Care, and the Benioff Children's Hospital. It is through this kind of collaboration that we continue to improve the care and the quality of life of our patients and our caregivers. So thank you for taking part in this important conversation. I hope that tonight's program not only informs and inspires us, but also reminds us all of the immense value caregivers bring to every step of the healing journey. What we'll do now is proceed with our panel discussion, which will explore some of these themes further, but from a lived experience. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this discussion, Dr. Claritza Rios. She's the Chief Medical Officer of By the Bay Health. Dr. Claritza Rios is a dedicated physician with extensive experience in emergency and internal medicine. She later followed her calling in specializing in palliative care. With a broad range of expertise, she recognizes a profound need for improved access to care, particularly for high-risk populations. And this led her to explore the field of telemedicine, where she has built programs and processes to bridge clinical access gaps in healthcare. So currently she serves as the Chief Medical Officer at By the Bay Health, but she's also committed to improving patient care and exploring innovative therapies aimed at reducing suffering at end of life. She is also the founder and CEO of Pontis Health, where she empowers health tech companies to optimize processes for exceptional patient-centered care experiences. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Claritza Rios.
Hi, good evening. Hi. Oh, good evening. And we'll go ahead and call the panelists to join us up here. Yes. Come on up. Thank you all so much. And thank you, UCSF, for hosting us tonight. Really happy to be here with you all, watching this very, very powerful film on caregiving. I think By the Bay folks and UCSF really understand the profound value and beauty in caregiving. But we also know that it comes with challenges. And so I think tonight we would love to say to all the caregivers, both here on the panel and all over the United States, that we see you and that this film and all the work you do inspires us. This is a call to action for us to really mobilize, really, and really get caregiving to really have the value at the government level, at the local level. It is really important for all of us to mobilize. And so we'll talk a little bit about the challenges that come with caregiving, about that relationship between physicians and providers and caregivers, and also what organizations can do to ensure that, again, we are giving caregiving its worth. And so I will start by introducing our amazing panelists. I'll start with Dr. Karena Nguyen, who is an internal medicine resident physician who found herself, while entering medical school, a caregiver for her mother who had a head and neck cancer. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Nguyen. She is an internal medicine resident at UCSD. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce Celeste Chacon, who at 19 years old was single and unhoused, facing a pregnancy with twins. And in that pregnancy, found out that one of her babies was diagnosed with a rare brain condition, which required a lot of medical attention. And finally, Liz Piña, who traveled the world with her love, Julio, who is an aviation mechanic and later diagnosed with a brain tumor. And she was his advocate and was with him throughout his care journey. And we're particularly grateful that Liz is here because Julio died 10 days ago. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here. And thanks to all of you for being here. I'm just really touched by all your stories. So we'll jump right in. I think we'll jump right in. I'd like to just first start by asking each one of you a little bit, if you, for a few minutes, just give us a little story about your loved one and maybe talk about a defining moment in that care journey. Why don't we start with you, Liz?
So my husband, Julio, was diagnosed with anaplastic ependymoma 7 years ago in 2018. We were lucky enough to end up at UCSF kind of by magic, and the team there is amazing. He had a surgery, he had radiation, and then 2 years of clean scans. And we kind of were like, well, this part of our lives is behind us. I didn't really think of myself as a caregiver because he was maybe 95% himself, with maybe minor speech issues. And then he had a recurrence in 2020 at a very fun time for everyone. And since then, we've just been like clawing our way out of like a hole, I think, the whole time. And so that's when maybe I really felt like I became a caregiver, and we leaned heavily into the brain tumor community. And yeah, I think there have been a lot of difficult moments, and I think every level has been like difficult, and then the next one comes and like, oh wow, this is more difficult than that one. And like the last 3 months have been very challenging, but yeah, I think for us, and there are people here who know me, and there are people watching who know me and have heard me say this before, but this was the life that we've had, and so we've lived it. So we've lived 7 years very fully, despite a lot of challenges, and I think that we really couldn't have done that without other people in our corner.
Thank you so much. Karena?
Yeah, I'm a caregiver for my mom. My mom was diagnosed with head and neck cancer in 2020. Coincidentally, on the day that I took the MCAT, which is basically like the SAT, but for medical school. So it was just a whirlwind since then, where my mom, who has been my strongest advocate, she's the most eloquent person that I know, that the head and neck cancer took her voice away from her, that she couldn't speak as a result of it. And I took on this new role of, it felt like our roles were reversed in a way where she had raised me to be the person I am, nurturing me, and now she was the one needing care in the family. So it was a harsh reality to me, for me, like a 22-year-old, to realize that our roles were reversing, and I had to grow up a lot when I'm in my 20s and I don't even know what it means to just be independent, but also take care of another person. So I do feel like I've aged decades, but I'm a better person because of it. And I do feel like I'm going to hopefully be a better physician because of these experiences, of advocating for my mom and giving her a voice when she wasn't able to.
So thank you so much. And Celeste?
Hi, everyone. I have a set of twin girls, Irie and Adora. Irie is typically developing, and Adora has a rare brain malformation called lissencephaly. Lissencephaly essentially is Greek for smooth brain. So her brain doesn't have any folds or grooves, and her corpus callosum, the middle part of the brain that connects the two sides, is non-existent. That kind of presents differently for everyone who has a diagnosis of lissencephaly. But for Adora, she's cognitively 0 to 3 months old. She's blind, nonverbal, and uses a wheelchair and has a G tube. So she requires full support in all aspects of her life. She was diagnosed in utero. So I found out when I was 26 weeks gestation through a fetal MRI. And yeah.
Thank you. When we think about caregiving, there's highs and there's lows. And it's not all romantic, as we saw from the documentary and in speaking with all of you. When you think about those challenging days, what were the things that helped? What gave you strength? And we can start with Celeste.
Oh.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think every day feels different. Every day looks different. And I think when my daughter is baseline, there's this familiarity of normalcy. And not a big fan of using that word, but that's how it feels sometimes. And when things are really hard and challenging, I think what the documentary touched on a lot was leaning on your community and leaning on people for support. Really early on in my journey with this diagnosis for my daughter, I did not have a lot of support. Like, I was homeless, I was navigating basic needs, and it was very isolating. Like, I was 19 and like, what were you guys doing at 19? Like, it was a lot. But now, as time has gone on, I've really created a community and chosen family, and I lean on them during challenging times, and it's really made all the difference.
Thank you. Liz?
Oh, hi. So, gosh, there are just so many layers of things that have gotten me through a variety of different difficult times. One of those things is the brain tumor community. Another one of those things is my employer being very flexible and understanding of my situation as it evolved, especially over the past 3 years, where 3 years ago, we were in a position where my husband was expected to have 3 to 6 months, and he had 3 years. So they were giving me leniency for the 3 to 6 months, and it lasted 3 years, and they've never said, okay, what's going on? Time's up, right? But also, like, in the past 3 months, let's say, well, actually the whole time, medical professionals who were really understanding and like compassionate and heard us through bringing different ideas to the table that they took seriously. He was just a very unique individual that had brain tumor leave the brain. And so we were always scrambling for ideas, right? Medical professionals who helped support him through issues with speech and physical capabilities. And then in the last few weeks, I will say that there have been people, I have just tried so heavily to do all of this myself, right? there's like a big responsibility that you feel for someone like who has a terminal illness, and you're responsible for keeping them alive. And that's a lot. Worth it. Everything I have done has been worth it. But the last, couple of weeks, as things shifted heavily in my life, people swooped in and they just like showed up, and some of them like spent all night with me and my husband, like taking 24/7 care of him. And like, I can't imagine what my life would have looked like over the past couple of weeks if I had shut everyone out. Like I really, really needed other people, and they really showed up for me. And like, here I am, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Karena?
Yeah, I think I really echo what these two have already said. My parents are from Vietnam, and they really grew up in this collectivist society. And when they immigrated here, they had to like adopt this individualism like that was espoused by Western culture. And so I grew up in this more like Western oriented mentality of like not asking for help, not asking questions, like questions, asking for help and asking questions are a sign of weakness. And I think that my whole worldview really shifted when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, in that I realized that like, no, I need to ask questions. I need to be comfortable asking for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that I care about my mom. And I think just being comfortable with that new normal really helped our family with that. And then more just like equally as important was the medical professionals too. I think that the UCSF oncologists who took care of her, the PT staff, the SLP staff, the social workers, really taught me the value of like this multidisciplinary care that really helped her just get back on track with her health. And yeah, for that, I'm just forever grateful.
Thank you. And as I hear you all, and I hear my patients, and at By the Bay, we have a lot of interactions with caregivers. This theme keeps coming up about community and the importance of community. And I just want to thank you guys for bringing your stories, because I think you are really showing people that they're not alone. Yeah, your experience is unique, but there's ups, there's downs. And when you see community, it can make a really tough situation all that much easier, if I can say easy in this realm. When we think about caregiving, the relationship with the care system is really important and helpful, but also it can really it can be messy, right? And we know from surveys, recently one at NPR, that looked at navigating the medical maze as super challenging. And so I'd like to ask each one of you a question around that. And I'll start with you, Karena. What are some of the key areas, especially with your caregiver hat, but also your physician hat, that you think could be improved in the medical system so that you as a caregiver would feel more supported?
Yeah, that's such a great question. In that all throughout my mom's cancer journey, I kept being grateful that even though I was like on my way towards medical school, I had some level of health care literacy that is such a privilege to have that not everyone has. And it made me just reflect on just the way in which this system is not designed for the people who aren't as in tune with how healthcare functions and works. So I really think that now that I'm on the other side of things, delivering that care, I've learned how important it is to set expectations for the caregivers and their patients, particularly with just what the expectation of like even how long a wait time will be for an appointment, how long is an MRI, how long does it take for these for an appointment to get booked, or how long a surgery is going to happen. those are kind of just the burning questions that I had as a caregiver, and that I've noticed a lot of patients and their loved ones have too. So being able to anticipate those needs really allows for just a smoother process and journey. So I'm trying to implement that into my care and really anticipate and be more proactive of answering those questions before the questions are even asked.
Thank you so much. It'd be great if we can like roadmap everything, right? And people know exactly what and where and how. That would take some of the pressure off, right? Celeste, as a young Latina woman who faced some challenges, do you feel that because of some food insecurity and housing insecurity that was happening along with like caring for your babies, did you feel that the medical system treated you differently because of your situation at the time?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel like there was bias from providers due to my economic status, my living status, and also my age. I think I was looked at as like, oh my gosh, like this young woman with 2 kids, and one of them is severely disabled. And it was just like, poor you. Like, do you even know what you're getting yourself into? And like, I don't think I was met with compassion or like trauma-informed care. It was like, I felt like I was under a microscope, and I always needed to make sure that I looked perfect. Even though things did not feel perfect, I never wanted providers to think that I was incapable of caring for my child. My daughter's needs are very high. And there were several pivotal moments where I knew I was not being met with compassion or respect from providers due to where I lived, due to how I looked, due to my age. And it was not good. It was just not a good experience. And that was, my children are 8 now. It was, very early on in their life. And that still follows me when I go into spaces now. It's hard. It's hard for me to separate what happened in the past with providers to telling myself that not every provider is what this experience was like. Yes. So I definitely feel like that shaped my relationship with providers and how I view the healthcare system.
And I want to reflect back to you that even though you haven't been respected or seen in the way that you should, that you're still showing up to be of service to others. That to me is amazing. And I would like to apologize from the medical community because, well-meaning people that have a lot to learn, and you shouldn't have to carry that. So thank you for still showing up. Unless you advocated so much for Julio and were his voice when he was having some speech issues as his disease progressed. Did you and Julio engage in conversations about the what ifs throughout the diagnosis?
No, I'm just kidding. Yes, we had spent so much time together over the years. Like, he was stationed overseas and we lived in Europe for a while, and we spent a lot of time together just in general. And when you've been with someone for a long time, you kind of can anticipate what they want to say a lot of the time. So based on honestly, I just have to say the trauma bond is real. So like UCSF has a great caregiver support system in their brain tumor center. And I met people there who guided me through a lot of this. Were very honest and open about their experiences throughout. And it gave me ideas of what to like ask. So we did some things, had some hard conversations, but like never was there a moment that I was like, what would he want me to do? Like even now, like I'm so confident because we had those difficult conversations and it's based on other people's experiences that they shared with me. And I'm like, well, this sucks. And I don't really want to have this shitty conversation about like, where do you want memorial services and like, what does like hospitalization look like for you? But like, we do have those conversations because we have to, right? And if you don't, then you're unprepared. So yes, I hope that answers.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Thank you. Thank you so much. So moving into some more conversation about community and resourcing. I'll start with you, Karena. How has, and I think you spoke to it a little bit, but would love a little bit more detail on this caregiving experience has obviously changed you as a clinician now. How do you think you practice medicine? You talked a little bit about anticipating changes. What else? Yeah, how else are you different now that you would have been?
Yeah, I think that now being on the other side of things, I'm realizing just how stretched thin physicians, healthcare providers are. And it's made me realize just how meaningful every minute you spend face to face with a patient and their loved one, how meaningful that is. So I really have to capitalize on that limited time and just be as present as possible, but also make sure that there's enough space for me to be able to set those expectations that I mentioned earlier, answer any questions that they have, but also feel like we've had a meaningful conversation with like enough closure until the next time I see the patient and their loved ones. And I think that this whole experience of caregiving has made me realize just how I need to really take advantage of all the resources around me, not just like my team of like other physicians, but also case managers and social workers and nurse practitioners too, and how we all have this role in working towards one singular goal. And I'm always just picking their brains too and asking for their help with setting this patient up for success outside once they're safely discharged from the hospital. How can we keep a patient outside, like away from coming back to the hospital sick again? So yeah, I'm just like, as a physician, I'm always trying to make sure that they're safe to go home and that they don't have to come back to the hospital. And so working with those other team players to make sure that's possible. I'm like really trying to communicate as much as I can with them.
Thank you. I think you're echoing what we talk about at By the Veil all the time, the importance of understanding the whole person, right? Because I think that's exactly what you're doing, and really tapping into that inter or transdisciplinary team, because your social workers are experts in really important things that impact your patient outcomes. And it's so key to really tap into those resources. So I'm glad you're doing that. You're sounding like a palliative care doc. I'm just saying. I was trying to get her to do a palliative care fellowship before we started. No pressure. Okay. Celeste, you had spoken about your experience with an amazing social worker that you said saved your life. And as we're looking at the landscape politically and from a funding perspective, and a lot of community-based programs being cut, what would you tell folks about the impact that can have on marginalized populations, especially those caregiving or holding serious illness?
Yeah, so I had a public health nurse at San Francisco Department of Public Health. Her name was Dana Lazarovitz. She's still doing her job and she's absolutely wonderful. And I truly believe that my family's outcome significantly shifted because she supported me and my family. I got into shelter because of her. I got into transitional housing because of her. And I got into permanent housing because of her, because she just made it like her life's mission to know about all of the resources in San Francisco. I think San Francisco is very resource rich, but information dissemination is horrible. These systems do not talk well with one another. And I think that's where families get trapped and get stuck. Sometimes providers and social workers and caseworkers, they don't know about everything that could benefit the client that they're serving, because there's no clear line of communication. There's no clear hub for resources. And Dana just knew about it all. I don't know how, but it really changed the trajectory of me and my family's life. And I think that that's one of the things that everywhere, but I'll just speak to San Francisco, we need to continue working towards is that clear line of communication so that families are having warm handoffs and being streamlined into where they need to be to access better outcomes.
Thank you so much. Feel like you should run for office. That's great. And Liz, you, Julio came to UCSF to get treatment, and you speak of the access to the many caregiver support groups and resources. So in your experience, what would you say you found most helpful? And if you had a magic wand that you can wave around over here at UCSF, what would you make different or improve upon?
Honestly, I don't need a magic wand because they listen to me. So I feel really fortunate in that sense. So one of the things, not necessarily at UCSF, but because of UCSF, like since I found like 4 years into this, I pursued my own support, right? This whole time was about my husband and support for him. And we would do things together and support groups together. But like at that point where we were like, oh, you know, he's dying. So I was like, I probably need something for myself. I finally stepped into that. And then I thought, wow, I wish that everybody had access to this. And I can't imagine like what my life would have been like the past 3 years without my group text of people that I met through UCSF, and they're probably texting me right now, like all day, every day, I promise.
And they're watching you?
They're some of them are busy with their people. But yeah, like I wished heavily about that. And I talked to a nonprofit, a large nationwide nonprofit about it. And they kind of had the same idea. And so I'm hoping that I'm a piece of a puzzle of giving that to other people who aren't at UCSF. But I really think that other large institutions, especially who have like a brain tumor center, right? Because caring for someone with a brain tumor or any brain issue, right? The brain controls everything. It's your body, it's your voice, it's your emotions. And like, that's not like anything else. And so having a caregiver program at these larger facilities is huge. And nobody, honestly, I'm biased maybe, but nobody's like UCSF. And I'm so lucky to have that support. And I think that, you know, if they could yell at all the others and be like, hey, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
We're so cool. You should be like us. Yeah. And maybe I'm trying to help some other places be more like UCSF, but I don't know. I don't think it'll, you know, no one's going to hit the bar, but hopefully like other people like me and like us deserve to have other people who get it. Cause you cannot talk to other people in your life as much as they love you and care about you. They do not understand what your position is like. You cannot be completely honest. You just can't. And so that's like having a safe space where you can be honest with other people who get it, and then find resources from people who understand the difficulties in all of this is just amazing and crucial. And like, I can't, again, imagine what my life would be like without all that.
Thank you so much. So as we think moving forward, I would love to pick each one of your brains. What advice would you give a caregiver watching us right now about how they save themselves, how they hold themselves together, or anything that somebody told you that you think would be helpful for a caregiver out there? And Celeste, why don't we start with you?
I was hoping I would go last.
Oh, no. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think kind of just what I touched on earlier, leaning on the people around you. It's like, I really relate to what all of us said, but just the isolation. I think when caregiver mental health is doing good, it's easier to pour into our loved one's cup. And when we're running on empty, it's very hard. We do it anyway because we have to. There's no other choice. But finding ways to pour into yourself, no matter how small, can really make all the difference.
Thank you. And you got to like put on, what is it, the mask before you go help others. It's so true. And it's true of, you know, mothering, and it's true of caregiving. And so thank you for sharing that. How about you, Karena?
Yeah, I think that I caregiving is a full-time job and then some, and it's something that you can really just become consumed by. And I'll be the first to admit I was consumed by it for a good 2 years, that I think like if I could do it again, I would try to remind myself to it's okay to take a step back. Like it's okay to keep pursuing some hobbies, to go on that walk, to just take 20 minutes just to meditate or find some peace, or do that exercise online exercise class. That's something that I slowly started doing towards the latter half of my mom's like battle with cancer, that I wish I had done a lot earlier.
Thank you. Liz, any thoughts from you?
I have endless advice. Yeah, people are used to my Liz talks. So I would say like live. I mean, this again is the life that we have, so we have to live it, but it's a weird combination of like having to live in the sense that in my position, like you might be losing your loved one and you have to live like that. We also have to live like you might not lose them. And so you make your plans for the future, you settle things up, documents and all that, and then that's off your shoulders. And then it kind of frees you up to like just live. And there's plenty of happiness to be found in the worst of situations. And I mean, I'm lucky to have been married to a very charismatic man who drugged me around places, and even when I was the driver. But yeah, like I mean, leaning into other people, so important. Accepting help when people offer it is very, very hard, but important. Yeah.
That was a hard one. And I see that a lot in women. And so thank you for calling that out, because yeah, people want to help. And there's nothing wrong in accepting that. We have like 2 more minutes before Q&A. Would love any last words, anything you want to share, either about your loved ones, your experience, or caregiving in general. Karena, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think something I've also learned from being a caregiver is when I see my loved ones, my friends, my family, ultimately having to like assume that role of a caregiver for their loved one, I've realized what can I do to help that caregiver. And I think that the best advice I could give for those who like have someone in their lives who's a caregiver is it's important to do and not ask, because as you mentioned earlier, Liz, it's like difficult to accept help. Especially like the number one question I hated getting asked when my mom was battling cancer was, oh, what can I do to help? And
Don't ever ask that.
yeah, I don't even know how, like what I could do. I don't know what task I could delegate to someone. Like I appreciate you asking that, but I felt like that question just overwhelmed me and I'd shrug it off, and like never actually ask for help. But the people who showed up and like they wouldn't even ask that, what can I do to help? They would say, I'm going to cook you dinner. And then they like did it. Or I'm going to let you take a break from driving your mom to radiation. I'm going to drive your mom to radiation. Like having those actionable items really informed me when my best friend inevitably started taking care of her mom who was battling cancer. I did that same thing where I did not ask, what can I do to help? I just tried to really focus on the bigger picture and see where can I fit in and offer help. And then I just would do it.
Taking some of that cognitive load out of the caregiving. That's great. Liz, any last words you want to share?
So my husband spent all of August and half of September inpatient at UCSF. And then we spent 3 weeks inpatient acute rehab. And when we got home, it was so hard. And someone had given me the tip that when both of their parents were ill, they wrote a bunch of things on Post-its and stuck them on their door. And when people came over, they could grab a Post-it and they could use that as a way to help. And I am not a person that's good at asking for help, but I am a person that's good at making lists. And so I made my little list on all the Post-its and I stuck it to the door and people came over and they did. Many of those things were my parents. I will say my parents have been helping us for a long time. And they're unfortunately the people who I was like, can you do this? Can you do that? We're gone forever. And can you do this? But you know, like some people have provided us with housing in their homes when we're away, and all of that. But people who are at home, they don't know what to do. And so that was helpful for me. That was a helpful tip for me. Hopefully that's a helpful tip for someone else. But yes, saying, let me know if there's anything I can do is it's like, people mean well, but it's a burden on us to come up with something you can do. So if you're listening, please don't do that to your friends or your family.
Thank you. And Celeste, anything you want to say?
Just continue meeting people with kindness and meeting yourself with kindness. I think kindness goes a long way and it feels good.
I want to thank Celeste, Karena, and Liz for just being amazing panelists, and again, for sharing your experiences, because it's informed so much and it just creates community. And for even through the tough times, you still find a way of being of service and kindness to others. And with that, thank you again. We'd love to take some questions. Hi, yes.
Thank you all for sharing your stories. My biggest question is most of what you talked about was people that you love and what you were doing for them when you're caregiver. And then the tip that you develop that perfect. But I'm interested in your own, like if you were saying that, you know, you wish you had done that years ago as far as taking care of yourself as a caregiver. So I'm interested in what you all think is the strongest as far as supportive care services or supportive services for yourself. What's most helpful for you? And then thank you very much.
Yeah. I'll repeat myself. I was just thanking the panelists for sharing their stories and being vulnerable, and acknowledging the fact that even now they're still talking about the people that they love, which is like such a caregiver thing to do. And I'm curious what each of you felt was the strongest supportive care services for yourselves as far as like caregiver respite and burnout, or what you thought was most helpful for you. And then also maybe something that you wish existed, like more caregivers, but more specifically, like what you think would be helpful that doesn't exist.
Sure. There's this respite facility in San Leandro called George Marks House, and they take care of, I don't know the age range, but people who have severe medical complexities, and they are the most amazing place ever. I don't know exactly how many places like George Marks House there are, but I don't think it's many. And I think it was one of the first ones that actually came to be. But they have like so many, like my daughter gets to go and she gets to go to like the spa. There's like aquatic therapy and she loves being in the water, and she can go there 21 days out of a calendar year. So it's also a break for me, and it's a break for me and her twin sister to spend time together that can feel like I'm just focusing on her twin. It's hard to give. You'd think twins need the same thing, but no. So yeah, George Marks House is amazing, and they provide so much support to my family, not just to my child with a diagnosis, but to me and her SIB.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else?
So I've been a member of the patient and family caregiver group. Karen Stronach's in the back. She's been leading it that too. And not only has it been just a great way to meet monthly and talk about change within the UCS system, but also to have a voice too for like what we've noticed from our experiences as caregivers and what we think can be an area of improvement. And I found that to be quite cathartic for me, in the sense that I'm talking with other people who are caregivers or who are cancer survivors, and able to, like, it's just such a, being a caregiver, but also a caregiver at UCSF is such a unique experience. And it's been great to be able to be a part of this community. I wish I could be part of it even more, but because of scheduling, haven't been able to attend as many meetings. But when like I am present during it, it's just the best feeling. It does feel like not only group therapy, but also just advocacy at its best.
So I've had this issue with the like self-care topic because I think people think of a spa day as self-care and having my phone separated from me in a locker when I was having a massage and my husband could be having a seizure was not relaxing at all for me. So I honestly, caregiver support group has been really helpful for me, but also like showing someone else that I trust how to do things so that if I have to step away or if I get hit by a bus or, just because my husband had an illness doesn't mean that I'm immune. Right. So, so that I felt confident that he was taken care of if something happened and I wasn't able to be there. And then that kind of opened the door for me a little bit to allow respite care into my home. As a veteran, we were able to get into the family caregiver program at the VA and they offer respite care as part of that. So I will say the first time someone came, I did not leave the house because trust is a hard thing. But yeah, that did help me go to work a little bit and, which is 7 minutes from my home. So trust, but yeah, I think really, really leaning into other people who have the experience, but also like my parents, they're around, I could trust them. I showed them how to do some things. And it was like, okay, well, if I need to go to the grocery store, I can do that. But my self-care is probably not the ideal here.
Do we have any other questions? I will walk the mic to you. Cynthia, I'll come to you. And I don't know if we're taking online questions. Awesome. I think you're looking. I don't know.
There are a couple of questions online, if that's okay. So one question is, how are medical schools and nursing schools, postgraduate training settings include caregiver issues into the curriculum?
It's really a great question. And as I'd love to hear your perspective.
So I went to medical school at University of Vermont, and I will be honest, I don't think we did not have any caregiver experiences, or like get to have the privilege of learning from caregivers. But I do feel like Vermont made a great step in promoting interdisciplinary care, of having us meet almost on a monthly basis with social workers, PT, dietitians, SLPs, just to talk about like what PT school is like, what medical school is like, what SLP school is like, and just having that, I guess, those shared experiences and like common ground, and what we're all working towards, and that's for the patient. I do think that medical schools could do a better job of like enlisting caregivers, and because it's such a unique experience. We keep saying that, but it really is something that like it's hard to understand unless you've lived it. So I think that's a great idea for future educational programs.
Definitely. And I think it speaks to every medical school tries to incorporate some discussions around social determinants of health, but in terms of the actual, this is how you do X, Y, and Z, don't assume that your nurse practitioner, RN, or a medical doctor will have all the expertise. And so always remember that there is an interdisciplinary team. There's a social worker and a unit. You can ask, right? I mean, we've heard about respite care. Many people don't know what that is. Is that something that exists in the care continuum for my loved one? These are questions that I think caregivers should not be afraid of asking. And then there's, I think, another question, or are we out of time? I want to be mindful of everybody's time.
There's more time. I don't have I just have a note to give Pineapple a hug. Let's see, I'm actually having trouble reading this. Sorry. Sorry. Anyway, give Pineapple a hug from her team. She'll know who we are.
I actually thought of something from earlier though about UCSF and what I could ask for. I would like to ask for grief support because I should have said goodbye to my caregiver group yesterday and I was like, So it's a hard transition and I have made the personal connection so I won't be alone, but like not everybody is me. And I think maybe it's already been on the radar, but like it's hard to trauma bond. I will say it all day, but it's hard to trauma bond and then like lose your bonded trauma partners. Yeah.
That's really helpful.
And thank you for the hug.
Really helpful. And I'll say, obviously at By the Bay Health, we engage in palliative care and hospice care. And so much of palliative care, just to give a little bit of definition for folks out there who may not know, we are a specialty of medicine that cares for folks with serious illness. So we work with your pulmonologist, with your nephrologist, we work with your oncologist the minute you get a diagnosis of serious illness. And our focus is to partner with those specialists and caregivers and the village helping care for you in addressing the symptoms of serious illness. And of course, your oncologist is doing that as well, but they're really having to laser focus on the cancer or the kidney failure. Our team, my team, gets to descend on all the symptoms, how disease impacts your personhood, how you have a lot of grief because your marriage is not the way you pictured it would be 25 years from now. It's changed, right? And there's loss in that. There's grief in that. And it impacts the way you move through the world, the way you see yourself, the way you see your relationships. And so a palliative care team can help support those other teammates in providing that care. And, keep going.
Finish. I just was letting you know there are a few more questions.
Oh, okay, great. And so palliative care is this big umbrella term. Palliative care is involved from the time of serious illness diagnosis. If disease evolves and it no longer has what we call disease modifying or curative treatments available, then hospice care can be employed to help people be comfortable and live the best life they can, rooted in the reality of illness, and the illness will evolve. And then palliative care has yet another big part of its care continuum, which is bereavement care. When a serious illness patient, a serious illness loved one dies, we recognize that there's a community that is left behind that needs care and support. And so we then employ expertise in bereavement so that we can help hold space. And so I would love for us to talk after we're done on how we can find some resources for you. Oh yeah, Molly, absolutely. Sorry about that. Okay, all you.
So there's one comment that says it's great that UCSF and By the Bay Health has hosted this event, but recent mandate to require all personnel back on site has caused those of us caregiving to make a difficult decision to choose between family and career. So that was just a comment that I'm sharing. And then a question is, what small practical routine or habit makes the biggest difference in your daily life as a caregiver?
If I can just address that first statement, I feel so much for that a provider or person who works in a care setting. And what an amazing amount of energy I think is in there to really speak to policy making so that we can change the hospice benefit, so that we can reimburse hospitals all the money that we spend and use to ensure that we're providing high quality care. And so, yeah, sending that person a big hug because it's tough. And yeah, let's unite and activate so that we can change policy. And would love, can you repeat that last question again? Because I started talking, I don't know that they heard it.
What small practical routine or habit makes the biggest difference in your daily life as a caregiver?
I mean, literally, it just depends on the person, honestly, and your situation. Like, if you have a person you can leave for a while, go for a walk, go to Pilates, something that's great. If you have a person you can't leave, I don't know, brushing your teeth. Like, literally taking a shower for 5 minutes can be the thing that makes you feel like a human. But it's not a one size fits all, and it heavily depends on what the circumstances are. Yeah, like some people might get a weekend away, and some people might have 30 seconds to take a shot of espresso. I don't know. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I echo that. I think meditation really helped me. I found myself kind of like just seeking something to hold on to during the worst of my mom's battle. And through that I found church, and I think like having something that like was not very tangential to me and kind of just like this higher power when like things were going just really bad and like it felt like things were hopeless, like just clinging to something really helped me. And even just for like 10 seconds, just meditating for a bit, that really made a huge difference.
Any thoughts, Celeste?
Ooh, it's hard. I think I don't have like anything except for at the end of the day, I love to put on a good show. I love to watch other people's problems. I don't gotta think about my stuff. I think about everything on the TV. And I don't know if that's helpful, but it feels helpful right now. I feel like I'm on constant autopilot all day, on the next thing, on the next thing. And you know, when my kids are sleeping and it's just me and I'm alone with my thoughts, it's tough. So turn on a good show and I don't have to hear my thoughts.
Agree about the trash TV.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh,
Just from listening to you all talk, in addition to all the really difficult times, there's this arc of personal growth that I hear through your stories. Do you want to just take a minute to share the ways in which this caregiving experience has transformed you as a person or made you more whole in some way?
I can say something all the time. So I would say that my relationship as a wife, I have not cared about, sorry, but petty bullshit for like a long time, because there's this huge thing that's been happening in life, right? And I can't, not that we have not bickered or anything like that over the past 7 years, but like the big picture is like our relationship has been so strong, and it was already very strong, thankfully. And my husband's personality was not negatively impacted significantly by his diagnosis, maybe a little bit by Keppra, but like we've just had such a strong bond, which also maybe is harder now. But yeah, I think that the perspective of life and what matters has drastically changed for me in the past 7 years and the past 3 years and the past 3 months. And so there's like, it's like the club you don't want to be in, but like there are things that can be, I don't even want to say silver linings, but like maybe like muted gray linings that can really be beneficial from experiencing something like this, where your like whole life is taken up by this thing that whatever it is, like you have to step back from whatever you thought life was, and then you reevaluate like what's important to me and what can we continue to make part of our lives, and how can we continue to love each other in an environment that really sucks.
I think my experiences as a caregiver have really mellowed out my personality. I used to be very much like we gotta like full steam ahead. We have to like, I will run through brick walls to get something done. And then my mom's journey with cancer and the highs and the lows made me realize there are just some things I can't control. But I can control my attitude about things, and I can control my stress levels. So I've just kind of reached this like happy medium of just like calmness now in the face of like struggles, whereas like 22-year-old me would have just been an anxious wreck, understandably. But yeah, I think I've definitely mellowed out.
Yeah, with my child's diagnosis, I think being a caregiver has made me whole in terms I've found like my life meaning. I'm an advocate for other families that have children with diagnoses, and I've made it my career, and I try to use my lived experience to shape better outcomes for families who are experiencing similar things to mine, and feels very full circle.
Thank you.
Oh,
Why don't we ask people in the room and then we'll move to this?
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for walking all the way up here. I was just wondering, Celeste, you used the word like lived experience, and as a future provider, and maybe to other providers in the room who doesn't have lived experience with the patient population that I hope to treat, like, what advice do you have for us? How can we educate ourselves better if we don't have that lived experience? Or of course, there's so many different folks and so many different experiences. I feel like that's it. And also maybe just like if there's any like spiritual care, I've been thinking about spiritual care a lot as well. If anyone would like to comment on that, and its place in healthcare, as well, and in your journey as a caregiver.
I love that question. I love when providers think about that, because don't get me wrong, education is great, but there is nothing like living through and supporting the population when you've gone through it yourself. I think being in the community, going out in the community, and not just in the four walls of wherever you're treating patients, but seeing them in their spaces that they're comfortable in, however that looks for them, and meeting them where they are in the community. I think coming to things like this, right? Like this is a great example of hearing firsthand what families and caregivers are going through. So thank you for asking that question. I love it.
If I may say something, thank you. So I love that question for the same reasons. I also think approaching your patients with curiosity, I think, is so key. You've heard this, right? Open-ended questions. Assume nothing, and own your bias. Own your kind of. We're socialized in a society that has a lot of awesome things, but there's stuff ingrained. There's unconscious bias, and just give yourself grace and own it and say, okay, I'm going to come into this with X bias. I'm going to have an open mind and be curious. I think that's really important. And in terms of spiritual care, speaking back to the palliative care as a field, one of the things that I didn't talk about is the fact that this interdisciplinary team that we deploy in the management of serious illness, believes very strongly that spiritual care, whether tied to religion or not, is really a tenet of the work. And so obviously the physical health, mental health, existential health of the patient is important. And so the team includes a doctor, nurse, social worker, and pastoral care, and then other wonderful providers that help in that. I don't know if any of you had any experience with pastoral care and you want to share.
I want to ask you, each of you, something, and I hope you understand the question. how are the men in your lives stepping up? How are they, and are they being there for you? And do you sense that they are, behaving like I believe that men should? What is your personal experience with where that is right now in each of your lives?
I can go first. There is no man, not a single man. Honestly, not my father. I don't have a partner. Their dad is not present. That's me being very honest, right? Since you asked. But yeah, there is no man. I'm surrounded by women and I feel supported by them. And I feel like I don't lack it not having a man, if that makes sense.
My dad was very present during my mom's battle with cancer. But he was also working a full-time job and also taking care of my brother who has special needs. So the way in which we kind of divided and conquered was I would take care of my mom and he would take care of my brother. So was just very grateful for him, and also grateful that his job allowed for a remote component where he could, when I needed a break from taking care of my mom, he could step into. And my partner has been very supportive too of my mom and me. And I think supportive in the sense that he just listens and validates just when things aren't going great. He doesn't try to offer solutions or tries to fix things or, offers his unsolicited advice. He's just very much present and validates these experiences, which I think goes a long way for all of us.
Mine's going to be long. I'm the opposite. I have all the men and I love it. So I'm an only child and I've always been very independent. Like, no, I got this. And at some point I definitely didn't get it when we came home from being at NIH for weeks and our pool was green. And I'm like, Dad, I need your help. So my dad has been really, really helpful. And like when we came home from rehab recently, he built like a ramp to get into our shower so I could roll my husband in there in a chair. Like thousands of things that he's done. And then we have some close friends who we travel with, and like traveling is hard when you have like physical and speech issues. And so like we went to Turks and Caicos and my husband was snorkeling and he had a seizure, and like literally someone we had just met carried him out of the shower into the bed when I couldn't like get him off of me because he was passing out from taking Ativan. Like, so those are some examples. I have men present here right now who are in the brain tumor community who I know it's like a very personal connection because they're also experiencing things that make it scary to lean into someone like me who was experiencing like this drastic thing that was happening over the past few months. And of course they love my husband, but they also love me and provide me with unimaginable support. And then like the past when my husband went on hospice on Thursday, 2 weeks ago, two of his best friends from home flew in. He's from Texas. They flew in. One of them is a nurse, one of them is not. And they like did every single thing. Like, I don't even want to say all the things because maybe they don't want me to say, but like didn't bat an eye, stepped in and like took complete, and everybody was like, what is happening? This is amazing. Like incredible. And I'm so thankful. And I do have plenty of like capabilities on my own, but like watching the men in my life care for me, care for my husband has been really, really amazing. And like, I mean, Richard and Adrian, just saying, they were like, they just like took the very best care of my husband the last few days of his life.
There's one here. Oh, and then
You. So, and I thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your stories. I just want to name that, like, So I'm a provider in a healthcare setting. And oftentimes I don't think we recognize or give caregivers the credit for being the expert of their loved one. And that's something that I really want to uplift and highlight. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you would love like caregivers to know, not caregivers, I'm sorry, providers to know, like if there was something you wish you could tell them so that way they can provide better care or to respect or just include you more within the team experience, something that might be kind of helpful or kind of piggybacking off of her question. But yeah, it'd be really helpful.
There's nothing better you could personally do as a provider. I'm just going to embarrass you and say the 3 people there, my husband's providers at acute rehab, and they are here right now. Like, if you can imagine that they listened to me on a level that like, nope, you don't expect people to listen, and cared for a person with a terminal illness who was at rehab, right? And the whole question was in the hospital, should you go to rehab? Should you just go home? And it's like, well, like, no, we should go to rehab. We should not go home and lie in bed for the rest of whatever life is, right? And so I definitely have been an expert in my husband. I'm not a medical professional, but like, you guys are good. Like, but for other people, yeah, you just really have to trust that the person who's living every single day with someone, well, I mean, it depends on the person, but who's showing up and putting in an effort and telling you things, you got to listen to them, because like, we do know all the things. Like, there's a limited time that a provider spends with a patient, and there's a whole lot of other time that we spend with the person. And so like, listening to the things that we say about like what that person's capabilities are, what their normal is, what they want and don't want, even if, because sometimes, especially with people who have trouble communicating, yes and no get mixed up. And it's like, well, they said no, they don't want that. I'm like, I promise you he wants it. Just listen, just ask him a different way. You'll get the right answer, right? So thank you guys for being here and for asking that question. I don't know.
I think I don't know if this really answers your question, but like, looking at my family as a whole, right? Like, unfortunately, I have to take my my daughter's twin to a lot of the appointments, and I think she's very much overlooked. And I understand that the appointment is for Adora, but it's hard when my other child is there and is constantly needing things from me or hearing quite very scary things that an 8-year-old should not be hearing. So I think just being mindful that it's like, it's not just the patient, it's all of us. I don't know if that answers the question.
I now have something I would like to add to something that I feel like I'm trying to work on as a provider is the value of clustering appointments all on the same day for a patient and their loved ones, because the burden of having to drive like just for that one appointment and then drive home and then the next day driving for like an SLP appointment, just trying to streamline what can be done virtually, but also what can I maybe push 2 weeks from now so that it can align with their PT appointment. I'm a primary care provider, so I'm always looking ahead now, like, okay, when is this patient like going to have their HEMONC appointment? Okay, maybe they can see their nephrologist that day as well. I think that helps alleviate the burden we caregivers have of trying to transport our loved ones, but also it's just nice to have all your appointments back to back. Like, so maybe if you have a question that you forgot to ask your HEMONC doctor, your nephrologist will have an answer to.
It was such a good question. I'm just curious, having been caregivers and as current caregivers, what would you guys say if there was something policy related or something that you could change, the policy that you could write and change that comes to mind, or a specific thing you wish were billable? Like, what would those things be?
Yeah, that's going to include you. Want to start?
So I want to hear what you guys have to say, but I do think that there is we know from the documentary, right? There's data around this that our benefits need to change, right? And so there has to be policy change that allows more support in the home for patients. And so when I think about palliative care and the hospice benefit and all that, there's such opportunity for us to broaden that to ensure that we have custodial care in the home supported. We know that folks who know their family members cared for are more productive at work. And so it's not just a benefit for the family and the micro, but it has a macroeconomic impact. And yeah, so I think there's just everybody wins in this society when we take care of seriously ill folks and their village and their people. But I want to hear what you guys have to say.
So part of what I do for work is I work at a VA, and I'm constantly amazed by all the resources that the VA offers to the veterans. And something that I found works really well, and I wish that there was more funding that it could be done nationwide, was this program called Hospital at Home, where providers can come to a patient's home and just check up on their meds, see how their wounds are doing, touch base with them. So really bring the hospital to a patient's home when they're unable to make it out to the hospital themselves or to clinics themselves. And I think that that not only just does a great thing towards healthcare costs, but also keeping patients from the emergency room and unnecessary clinic visits or hospital visits that can be prevented if we can just bring these resources to them directly.
Paid time off. Paid time off, affordable health care, home health options like respite care. For the VA does have amazing programs, and we're so lucky. I honestly, without the VA, we would have been in a very different situation. But there are a lot of policies that could help, but really it would have to be multiple things to really do a good job of supporting family caregivers in a substantial way, I think. I mean, there's a whole list, but those three come to my mind first.
Folks, we're out of time. Want to thank you all so much for sharing your stories and being here and just being so open and vulnerable for you guys with these amazing questions, and folks out there for joining us. Thank you all so much. Get home safe. It was a pleasure. Take care. Sorry, I spoke too soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rios, and of course, our panelists. That was amazing how honest, vulnerable, and courageous in sharing their stories with us. You've seen the film too. You've seen the story, the power of storytelling. I think those are the things that really hit us hard in terms of how important this topic is, and just hearing all the questions as well from the audience and those watching us online. I really want to thank the Biodebated Health, all of the teams at UCSF, the Cancer Center, the Palliative Care team, and the MERI Center, as well as the Benioff Children's Hospital. Working together is really what's going to make the difference as well, raising the awareness. I want to also thank the filmmakers. I mean, that's really incredible that they're raising the kind of awareness that needs to be heard, so that we can really recognize how important it is to think about care as not only an act of compassion, but as something that really connects us. It's really what makes us a community. So before you leave this evening, I want to invite you to join us in the atrium. Our Caregiver Resource Fair will be around as well for any questions or comments that you want to make. We really want to thank you for spending the time with us this evening, and safe driving home too. Bye.